is a tough decision. But I'm sure that if you do that to Italy, maybe some other country come and take the land from there. I don't think you can even imagine that all the people here in the whole of the West will not allow it to happen. That first of all, you manage to find somebody who stole the land, and you will need to negotiate with the person on the terms of how you are going to relinquish the land back. Now, I'm saying that because Robert Mugabe is quoted as saying that when they took the land, there was no negotiation. They didn't consult the people that owned the land. They took it by force. And now the people that own the land want it. They're asking for negotiation. So I'm trying to see this ambiguity here of you catching a thief and you have to negotiate with the thieves so that you can get the land back. Of course, I'm saying thieves because the colonialists are basically thieves. They come to a land that is not their own, they take it, and now they want to be compensated. I'm not able to understand that.
Yes, you see, you are very right to say thieves. And unfortunately, we were brought Robert Mugabe, Joshua Nkomo, and all other leaders of the struggle were brought to a table where they were going to negotiate with the thieves. And the thieves had wielded some power because they had their kith and kin who were also offering some trinkets so that we could buy in their arguments. But one thing that we should commend our leaders for who were at the Lancaster House conference is that they made sure that as much as they were compromising on that fundamental issue of the land question, they had a time frame to say that, one, it should only last for 10 years. If they do not sell their land, then through the willing buyer, willing seller basis, then the land was going to be taken. Secondly, the willing buyer, willing seller was going to be done or was going to be paid for using money which was supposed to be funded through the British government, because the British government is the one that had its kith and kin in Zimbabwe. And when Tony Blair came into power, he reneged on all promises and agreements that had been made by Margaret Thatcher. That is why you had at some point Comrade Robert Mugabe saying the little Blair. And at that particular time, we had what we were calling Blair toilets in Zimbabwe. And the euphemism that was then attached to the little Blair and the songs that were being sung by others, that the Blair that we know is a toilet, made a reference to the then Prime Minister of Britain, who had reneged on the funding of the willing buyer, willing seller process. And even then, they reneged on the funding of the payment of improvements that were supposed to be that had been done on the farms by those who were there. Because even when land was forcibly taken, there was that provision. And because they had refused to go through the willing buyer, willing seller, there was no reason why Robert Mugabe and all the other leaders would then have gone to the Zimbabwe Farmers Union and all these other unions where the farmers were affiliated to and say, now let us negotiate, have a new negotiation. Well, when it was time to take up the land had to be taken. And it was going to be taken because Robert Mugabe and all the liberation fighters knew that to empower the black man, you needed to make sure that you give him land, because it is from the land that we can get all the resources to build the country. It is from the land that we can ensure that we own the means of production. And that is exactly what Robert Mugabe and the leadership collective did to make sure that Zimbabweans become the owners of the means of production, particularly the land. And we are proud that we are, unlike any other African country, we are truly independent, given that we own our land.
All right. In Zimbabwe, there is a certain amount of people of European origin, who are still citizens of the country. Were they totally driven out, or did they have a place where they can also farm like other Zimbabwe? Because, of course, we can see now that the arrangement that the British made didn't work. It cannot work because this is not your land. You take it, and you take it disproportionately. The people that own the land didn't have anything anymore. Those that never owned the land now have the land. Okay, that didn't work. It cannot work. That is an injustice of a staggering proportion. All right, at the time of Mugabe, since there are these British people that are living among the Zimbabwean as Zimbabwean, do they have a land to also live and farm like every other Zimbabwean, or do they need extra treatment? They need more land compared to other people? Let me understand that.
Let us put this into context. When Robert Mugabe came into power in 1980, he extended the hand of reconciliation to to everyone and said, "Let bygones be bygones. Let us now work together to develop our country." It is only because of the mistrusts that the whites had that they decided to leave the country. It had nothing to do with Robert Mugabe and his leadership, because Robert Mugabe had said, "We are prepared. If you were my enemy yesterday, now that the war is over, you have become my friend. Let us work together." So under those circumstances, we would have expected that whites and anyone else who was owning huge tracts of land would start to cede or to sell it under the willing buyer, willing seller basis. But those who did not do so, when people came to forcefully take the land, they should not have resisted. They should have said, "Here I am. I'm ready to give you 50 hectares out of the 100 that I have." And those whites that were prepared to work with the black majority are still there in the country. They are treated in the same manner like any other citizen, and they have no special preference, as much as the black majority do not have a special treatment, because ordinarily they have also become Zimbabweans. The only difference is that they're white and the majority are black, but we are all Zimbabweans, and they should not be accorded any special treatment. If we have a farmers union, blacks and white are in the farmers union. If the minimum hectarage for a farm is 200 hectares, blacks and white should have 200 hectares, and so on and so on. So there is no preferential treatment. But more importantly, the issue of land is that it should be turned into productivity. And this is where now we have seen the government even today trying to do land audits to make sure that there is no land that is used by individuals for speculative purposes. You need, if you have a piece of land, you should be turning it into production. It should be producing food so that we can put food secure. We can't continue to be what we are today when we have land that is productive, that if people work on the pieces of land, we can go back to what we used to be. And like you have asked, whites who are in the country, we have quite a significant number. They are treated in the same manner that the black majority are also treated. And anything that they want, it is through the same process. But they still, on their own, still have their white privilege, which they accord to themselves or arrogate to themselves by virtue of the riches that they amassed at the time that we are under their control and rule.